Today we're going to be looking at the old constitution. We're wondering why there's so much confusion, and one of the things that we want to talk about is in our Anglo countries, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, even America, they all had constitutions, and they had to also follow the 1688 Bill of Rights above that, but under that they had their own separate constitutions. And the Constitution is here from, I always wanted to read this, so I'm going to read it today. Of the Constitution that was created in 1888. And this is what he said: there shall be, I'll read it to, can everybody see?
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if you have any questions, you can stop me. So he says, there shall be set apart an area of land equivalent to so many acres for each man, woman, and child of the Maori race, including all half-caste, except for Hori Kerai Taiwhanga, who is otherwise provided for. Such area shall be selected in such parts of the North and South Islands as the Maoris may decide upon, and every allotment granted under this provision shall be inalienable. So under this one, you will get given a piece of land, and this would be in the paper title. Since it says you are granted under inalienable, this means that you got a Queen's grant. So this is not native title. Every single man, woman, and child was given a piece of land that was sellable, inalienable, and it was from a Queen's grant. The allotments shall be selected by the chiefs and people according to priority in rank. A suitable portion of such area shall be set apart for a town. So from that amount of land that was given to the chiefs, you were to set a suitable portion apart from it to be used for setting up a town, so that we would have towns in your country. Such towns shall be vested in the council as common property of all Maoris, except as aforesaid, and shall be governed by a council or a board similar to municipal councils in other parts of the colony. So here he's saying that you're going to have, here he's saying that in other parts of the colony where the settlers are already living, they have already got their councils, they have already got their boards and everything, and they want you to have the same thing. The rules and regulations shall be made for the management of the town, the health and recreation of the inhabitants, and the education of the children, and generally for the peace, order, and good government of the people in pursuance of Section 71 of the New Zealand Constitution Act of 1852. So what this means is that you had all your separate areas that were yours, and we all had our separate areas that were ours. And we had little towns, little white towns that we had set up, and you were to have little Maori towns that you would set up. And you were going to have the same as us in each of your towns to stop you all fighting. You, at this time, you were not longer viewed as tribes. You were to come together all as your people, not we are one people that you are one with us, but you are one people in your tribes, and you would work together as a unit, and we British people would work together as a unit on our side of things. So that's why they gave you the name Maori, where you didn't have the name Maori before, because they no longer wanted you to work. They wanted you to set yourselves up as a group that were not working only as your tribes, but were all working together to create health, good governance, and small towns in your own areas. All right, let's remember that at this point in time, a lot of the settlers lived in separate areas to the Maoris. 2, Maori lands. All right, get some out my bag. All other lands belonging to Maoris or to which they may be entitled, including reserves, and whether Crown granted or not, so this is your pure titles, shall be deemed to be Maori lands, absolutely freed from all tribal and other rights and restrictions whatsoever. So this is saying that you're going to have an overall governance system that is not going to include each tribal laws. So your tribal laws are going to remain your tribal laws, and this is going to be an overall law that you can all follow, where you're not bound by another tribe's laws. So this is your common law. This is going to be a common law for all of you to follow. All right? So this is where you got your common law. And then such lands shall form a Maori estate and shall be dealt with as it hereinafter mentioned. So not only were you, each man, woman, and child, going to be given a small piece of property to call your own, upstairs in my bag, which you all get, they also had an overall large pieces of land that were in the pure title that were to be given to you as like, if you could say, like a small country, that you all owned it. You all owned that. The land laws and mining laws of the colony enforced for the time being for the sale, leasing, mining, or other disposition of crown lands shall also... What? Hang on. Sorry, you can have discussions about that.
So did she
I'm
say
reading
that?
it. There was a proposal of Sydney David Taiwhanga for the colonisation and settlement of Maori land.
We could most probably take that, eh? Some of it.
I like the fact that it says what absolutely free from all tribal and other rights and restrictions whatsoever.
Yeah. I
Simply
think
because like I don't know, it's just another lens to go through, and you'll just never get everyone to agree.
you won't. You won't.
No. And then you think of the dysfunction throughout, you know, the majority of New Zealanders coming through. There's so many lenses to look through at stuff, but we don't have the time. We don't have the time.
What I want is to be left alone. Now leave me. I'll just some rice, some fried rice.
We don't have the time for that.
No.
To given what's happening at the moment.
We really don't have the time for any of this, so we have to think big. And so then they said that shall apply. So the Crown lands were getting money from mining and land laws and all of that, from money and from leasing, and also the Maori lands were able to get money from that as well. And all of that would go into a thing called the Maori estate. You all are a party to that. And we had the Queen Victoria estate, the Queen Victoria Trust, where we all went into there and you went in there as well. So you got a double. Subject to existing leases or other tenancy, the whole of the Maori lands shall be open for application and settlement. So this meant that all your Maori lands, people could apply to go and settle on them. And that would include all of your people that wanted to go and settle on them, or your people that wanted to do a business on them. They could go and ask at your Maori land courts if they could do that. And for settlement, you could set up towns in those areas. or schools. You could go and ask them for some land to make a school. You wanted to build a school, you'd go to the Maori Land Court, say, hey, we want to build a school, can we have a bit of land for building this school? This is what we want. The Counties Act of 1886 shall apply to all Maori lands. All lands required and appropriated for roads here shall vest in the Crown. Now, there's a reason for that. That means that when they wanted to build a road, they were permitted to come and take pieces of land to build that road. But without the road, the country couldn't develop. And so you needed roads. And so they were very careful they had given everybody an individual piece of land, and that couldn't be taken. But of all the big pieces of land where they needed roads to go through, if you wanted a road from Auckland to Wellington, you're going to have to build it, right? So it's got to go through the big land. So they didn't take your personal property, but they did use it. So, and that was all done by the Crown. It was up to the Crown if they needed it or not. But there were Maori discussions as well, and that's how you got all your roads. No roads, and you wouldn't have anything that you have today. All lands required for roads, railways, and other public works may be granted without payment to the Crown or to any public body or company making such railway or public work, and grants of land in aid may be made. Well, you might say, oh, wow, well, that's not fair. We didn't get paid for that land, but the Crown didn't get paid for the work and the resources and all of the, they? So we brought the resources and the white slave labour, and you brought all the land. And so you had something to offer and we had something to offer, and everybody contributed. So you didn't get paid for the places where they wanted to build roads and railways. All right? Reserves may be set apart for public purposes, similar to reserves in other parts of the colony. That means that your Maori Council could allocate some of your lands to be reserves for all the public to use. And our Crown lands would also allocate some lands for reserves to be used. So yours was we were two streams, we were two rivers running along together, side by side, but each of us had our own stream, all right? So then, the Maori estate shall be managed by a council or board consisting only of Maoris. So only you were allowed to govern all of these things, and not foreigners. All right, just get Mummy some rice. The council, all right, Mummy loves you, bye-bye. The council shall be elected in a similar manner as Maori members of the House of Representatives are now elected. So you had your own Maori House of Representatives. Did you know that? You actually had it. I don't know why they're saying that you didn't have self-governance when you clearly did. It was your own. Such election to take place triennially, and for the first election, the colony may be divided into 4 districts, each district returning members. So what they had done was, many of the Maori had become displaced because some of the stronger tribes had thrown the weaker tribes off of their lands, and then the Parliament said everyone can return and nobody's going to be beaten up or decapitated anymore. All the Maoris had agreed to this, and so everybody got a piece of land, and they said, you're all going to be safe to return back to your districts, and you will be permitted to be on the elections of these places that you've returned to. The council so elected shall appoint a president who may be a European and shall hold office during good behaviour or until removed by the unanimous decision of the committee. So you had your own Maori committee that foreigners were not permitted to be a part of, but you were permitted to elect a European to be president to help you, to be of assistance. But if your people saw that president was not acting in good governance, your committee was permitted to throw him out. And that would have been done by the 1688 Bill of Rights. Just like we can go to court and get our parliament kicked out, you would have been permitted to go to the court and have your president removed if he was not acting in your best interest. So you had that. That was your choice. You elected. Nothing to do with us. The council shall be a corporation and have a common seal. Now, at this point, you had the Governor-General seal on the Anglo side, and now you had the seal on the Maori side, and that exists today. Nothing gets past Parliament without your common seal. Nothing. And you may sue, and you may be sued, and its principal office shall be convenient to the seat of government. So what this is saying is that you'll have all this little parliament of your own, and you will have a principal office that has a seat in the overall government. This is where the two rivers run together, and you get to the mouth of the river, which is Parliament, where you would have your representative in Parliament that has got your common seal. And then we've got a larger Parliament, obviously, because we have to protect the whole country and everything. So we had local councils, you had local councils, we had a seal at Parliament, and you had a seal at Parliament. So that's how it all went.
Kate?
Yeah.
Kate, that would mean that if Max and myself actually drafted up like this constitution or a constitution, does that mean we have to go to the Maori King to get that seal? It would, eh?
Only, I don't really know, but I just know that the Maori King was recently recognised as the king over all of the Maori, but I have not seen his constitution, or even if he has a constitution. And I think that the seal perhaps sits in his hand, and the Governor-General seal sits in the Anglo hand. The Governor-General holds the seal for the Anglo people, and I think the Maori King holds the seal for the Maori people. But our Governor-General is restricted, and I don't think that your Maori King is restricted. But his seal doesn't get past our seal, and our seal doesn't get past his seal. It's a bit higher.
Which means nothing at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Which the way the country is at the moment is...
The two seals are working against all of us, because the two seals are trying to take away all of our power. The white man's seal is the United Nations, and that is trying to take away the 1688 right that we have to have control over Parliament. And the Maori man's seal is working against the Maori, because it's in the hands of the king, who wants to get a lot of money by having all these resources only in his hands and not all of your hands. So they're both working against all of us. And so we all have got to come together and work against all of them, I think. But, he's all right, Sharon. I can just only hear him a little bit, and he's a lovely little sound of life and joy in the background, and he's not disturbing us at all. So just
hopefully he'll hold a seal one day.
One day he could hold a seal. And so there's these two seals. So yes, he's all right. I don't mind listening to him. He's lovely. There's my son too. Mummy loves you, son. My son too. We have to be good to the kids. Sam, what are you looking for? Have you brushed your teeth?
Hi.
Did you brush? Oh, he's saying hi. He says hi.
Hi, Jim.
Did you brush your teeth?
Yeah, I got my dentist card.
Right. Send Mummy a message. Right. And Mummy needs a Pepsi. I need a Pepsi.
I won't be able to get that.
Okay. Shh, come on, I've got to do this. Right, goodbye. Shh, okay, I'm sorry. The council, the functions of the council when dealing with Maori lands shall be analogous to the functions of the land boards of the colony. Analogous means the same, I think. How do you spell it?
Well, it starts with anal.
Anal. Starts with anal. I didn't even see that.
Similar or alike in such a way as to permit the drawing of an analogy.
It says the
Similar
quality.
in function, but not in structure and evolutionary origin. Having analogy corresponding to something else, bearing some resemblance or proportion.
Yeah, it says here the state of being alike, an affinity, and a likeness, a correspondent parallelism. Yes, dear. So it says that you're going to have everything that we do, you're going to do it exactly the same. So they're saying we don't want this Pākehā government, which is just rude. It's just wrong because you've always had it and you had your own. You could bring any flavour to it that you wanted to, but they wanted you to have some structure. Was that Sharon?
That can be changed. We can change it to our way of how we want it.
Yeah, they gave you a system of structure, but they said you can bring any flavour that you want. You want to have your karakia, then you have your karakia. If you want to have a little waiata before you do the thing, you could do that. Or if you wanted to have certain things that we wouldn't have in Parliament, but you could do it in your own little thing there, and it would but it gave you a structure. So the regulations shall be framed by the council for the proper conduct and management of business, and all proceedings shall be open to the public, and all plans and other records shall be public records. See, that's why you have records down at the Waitangi Tribunal, but they've started doing things in Zoom meetings, and these Zoom meetings are not in the public, because it's all spoken. It's all spoken, and one person writes down a few key things that they want and leave out all the things that they don't want, and then they go and type it up in a secret meeting with the leaders by themselves, and they type it up, and they've already had all of the people sign to something that they never actually agreed to.
Yep.
So their meetings are these Zoom meetings are being held in the dark, and they are not public.
No.
And the minutes that are recorded are written up later. And so these are supposed to be held in a court of law, a Maori court of law, not Zoom meetings, not hui's, nothing like that. It's supposed to be extremely official. And the things decided are to be written up in that court, and the people are to sign it right then and there and be able to read exactly what they're signing up to. And it cannot be repugnant to the 1688. It must not be repugnant. So they are accountable. The President and Council shall receive such remuneration for their services as may be decided upon. So you decide how much people get paid. You decide how many people you need, and you decide how much they get paid, not us. The council may at any time state a case for the opinion of the Supreme Court, and subject thereto, all decisions of the council shall be final and conclusive. So in this case, when the council has a dispute, where they're disputing if something is accountable in law, everybody may go to the Supreme Court, just as we are able to now against our Parliament. You can go to the Supreme Court, and if it's repugnant to the 1688, you can stop them from making that law, you see? And then after that, the Supreme Court's decision shall be final and conclusive, and everybody will be agreed. So you had your own river, and when you got into difficulties into your river, you could go to the big man at the top and get an intervention to help you. just like we can. The Native Land Court shall be abolished, and all incompleted business shall be dealt with by the council or by a special commission. So they're going to set... What does he want? That's all right, let him hear his voice. What do you want, dear?
He wanted his balloon.
Have you got your balloon, dear? Have you got your balloon? What colour is it?
It's gone.
You're catching. Well, you can catch it. Just you have to catch it quietly, dear. All right, you've got the wee girl. Hello, dear. That's all the family. Nanny Floss is back again disturbing, but you're all right. All right. Nanny Floss and Nanny Maxine is back disturbing your Nanny Sharon. All right, come on now. So that the Native Land Court will be abolished. So that what they said was we're not going to fight as tribes anymore over lands because they were killing too many people. All the tribes were fighting, and one tribe was saying we were here first and that tribe threw us off, and now you've given that land to that tribe, but we want to come back and then this is our land, and they were killing each other. So they said we're not going to do that anymore. What we're going to do is every person is going to get one little piece, and then all the land is going to go into one Maori trust that's going to be for everybody, and we're not going to fight over this land. And what they've done since 1975 is they went back and they divided the tribes again, and they took you back to this Native Land Court and put all the lands into individual tribes again. That's why you're in so much trouble, because you're all fighting. All the tribes are fighting over who owns the land. They're down at Shelley Bay fighting. They're out at the treaty grounds fighting. Everybody's saying it's my land, it's not his, it's hers. And you're all fighting and you're not working together in unity. And this is by design. They've deliberately done this to you. So you're all fighting each other, and you're fighting the Pākehā, and now you're fighting the United Nations, and you are being crushed under the weight of how much they're asking you to deal with. Nobody can deal with what they're throwing at you. And you're all in stress, and that's why you've got them outside of Parliament. Eh?
And the cruel and unusual punishment is what it comes under.
It is a psychological, cruel and unusual punishment, because you are all very confused and you are all separated. You've been separated into your individual tribes, and 1 minute they want you working as a collective, 1 minute they want you to work in your tribes. They're giving many gifts to one tribe and not giving those gifts to other tribes, and then they go and give gifts to the other tribes, and then they don't give it to this tribe, and then they've got all this United Nations. It is a psychological torture, and your people are not equipped to deal with all this. You're just not. And
no, the majority don't even know.
No, they don't.
And they're definitely not, it's not filtering down, or the gifts are not filtering down.
The gifts are not filtering.
Today.
The gifts are not filtering down, that's right. The gifts are staying, the big gifts.
They're staying up there.
Staying up there. And, down at Shelley Bay, we've got people that, the first tribe that had people there hundreds of years ago that were attacked by other tribes and thrown off, they're all fighting each other about who owns it, and they abolished all that and they've brought it all back again, you see, and they've got tribe against tribe, Anglo against Maori. Now they're bringing in the Islanders. Then you've got the Islanders against Maori, and then you've got it's just too much. It's not fair. Crown grants, what do they say? All statutes affecting Maori Lauds, Lauds. Now that is a word.
Lords.
Laud. Loud is the formal, highly, especially in a public context. Persons of their achievements praise, and especially in the public context. So it says all statutes affecting Maori Lauds as above defined, which means anything in the public context that is defined. So what they did was they created the Maori as a public people in their own right, that all of you became public in your stream, and then we were public in our stream, and then we had our collective public in the communal public where we were both all together. Shall be repealed, and all crown grants or memorials of ownership affecting lands belonging to Maoris shall be null and void, but without prejudice to any existing contracts affecting the same, and save and except the taiwhanga. So taiwhanga didn't sign to any of this, and I'm thinking that he is Aotearoa. He's Aotearoa wanting to take the whole country. He was the descendant of Samuel Marsden in the direct line. We've traced him. And so he did not...
Isn't his lands the South Island?
No, his is in the North Island, in the place called Aotea. In Aotea, that's all his lands there. And I'm saying Aotearoa is him, and it's a separate government, and they've piggybacked him onto the New Zealand government, and he's causing all the chaos. And so if you're not in his group, then that's why you're not getting anything, because you're not in the right group. I'm thinking it requires a great deal of investigation. So he was separate from all of this, and all of you went under a collective Maori, because let's remember that many Maori had become slaves by that time. Most of you, your chiefs had all been decapitated. So you can see here, what they had done here is that they had decapitated all your chiefs. And when you had no chiefs, the people were on the land, and they didn't know where to go, and they didn't know how to manage, because they killed the chief and all his family and sold his head to the missionaries. And you will see here that later on, you'll see these heads here, but later on what they started, when they realized that they could get money from the New Zealand Maori, from the missionaries for heads, they started killing. When there were no more chiefs left to kill, they started tattooing the slaves and selling their heads of chiefs, but they were not chiefs' heads. So the real chiefs' heads, some of them were true chiefs' heads, and some of them were not. So I would say that this one here would have been a true chief head. The way that you can tell is it wasn't just a tattoo, it's actually carved in. It was carved right into the skin, and then the ink was put into the carving that was done in his skin. It was very painful. When they removed the head of your chief, and you see here, there's the tiki. Sharon, what's the story of the tiki? Could you just tell us about the hey tiki, about it being passed down to chiefs?
It's passed down from grandfather to grandson, grandmother to granddaughter, and it's actually a protection. It's a protection. It's good luck, all of that.
Yes, it was a protection, and oftentimes it was only given to probably the royalty, the very high up. And so you see him here, and he's got the chief's head, and he's got his tiki, and I think that they would be together. They were bound together. The spirit was in the tiki of his father and his grandfather and everything that was passed down in a ceremony. Sharon, did you say it was passed down in a ceremony? There was a big ceremony to get one.
Anything Maori, always, including getting tattoo, is a ceremony. And they have karakia, they have waiata. It's the same with anything that's passed down from your tupuna is passed down with a ceremony.
And usually only the very highest chiefs were permitted to have these moko mokai. And when they removed the head of your chief, then they went and took all your people and made them slaves to the missionaries. And what had happened is with this taiwhanga, so thousands of your people were left chiefless. And originally the lands, when they were giving the lands back, they were giving the lands back only to the chiefs. But if your chief had been decapitated and you had been sold as slaves and displaced to the missionaries to work as slaves, this was not the settlers that came and fought with you to get rid of these missionaries. Then you had lost your land. So they put all of you into this land conglomerate as one people. So everyone was equal. None of the tribes were higher than the slaves that had lost their chiefs. You were all the same. Well, Hori Kurai, who was a direct descendant of Samuel Marsden, he did not include in any of this, and he kept all of his land separate because they had a chief, you see, but you didn't have one. So you wouldn't have been able to get your lands back because you didn't have a chief to take the lands in the native land court. You were not able to. So that's why they put you into this. As public, you became a public Maori so that everybody could get a piece of the pie, not just only those ones that had kept their chiefs. Because you had lost all your chiefs. Some, well, not you specifically, but some had lost all their chiefs. The crown grants for Maori lands shall be countersealed with the seal of the council. So you got to see crown grants. Yes, so every single time that the Queen gave a crown grant of land to the public Maori had to be countersealed with your seal. So the Queen didn't just go out giving out lands willy-nilly, left, right and centre. It had to be sealed by your seal as well. There are two seals. The Queen, people didn't just go to the Queen and say, hey, Queen, I want a crown grant for that land. They had to make an application to the native councils first to ask if they could have a crown land for a grant for that land, and then they had to go and apply to the Queen also, and then the Queen would seal it, and then your people would seal it. So there's a lot of lying going on here. There had to be two seals. But all leases licensed shall be sealed with the seal of the council only. So all leases that you wanted to give that were not going to give a grant of ownership of that land. See, here's how it goes. The Queen bought some Maori land. Right, I'm going to come in here and show my face. The Queen bought some, I want to turn that off. The Queen bought, in my understanding, the Queen bought a bunch of land from the Maori, right? And she said, I'm going to sell that to the settlers in a paper title. The pure title stays with me. I'm going to sell it in a paper title. Since it sits with me, the Maori are not going to be able to go to that land and just take it from you, because the pure title sits with me and I will stop them. So that meant that it was safe for settlers to buy a little piece of land in the paper title, right? And but then there was land that you had that, so say I went and bought that piece of land, you cannot take that piece of land from me. You've got to go to the Queen and you've got to say, hey, I want that piece of land back, and she's got to say, does Kate Floss want to sell it? If Kate Floss says yes, she wants to sell it, Kate Floss will sell it back and the Queen will buy it back. And then the Maori will then pay the Queen the amount of money that she paid to buy my paper title back. She'll give you back your pure title. And that's how it goes. But if I, Kate Floss, say, no, I don't want to sell that land, it's mine and I'm keeping it, you can't do anything about it until I, Kate Floss, because it's guaranteed by the Queen. All right?
Yep.
Now, but so if your people wanted, if you had a piece of pure title and Kate Floss said to you, hey, I want to buy that piece of pure light title because I want to build a casino, you were not allowed to give it to me. You had to go to the Queen and sell it to the Queen. She would buy it, and then she would give back a paper title for the casino. So the whole thing would be. But if I went to you and I said, hey, I want to just lease a piece of your land, I don't want to own it in its paper title, I only just want to lease it for 100 years, you were permitted to do that, and you didn't need the Crown Seal to do that. Your people could do that as much as what they wanted, but it was only leased land, and many people did not want to buy leased land because they knew that after 30 years of building their business, the leased land would be taken from them and their business would then go back to the pure title owners. So a lot of people didn't want to lease Maori land because of those reasons. That's like that in Thailand too. Nobody wants to lease the land. In Thailand, you can't even buy a house. You're only allowed to lease, and you own the house, but you're not allowed to own the land. You only own the lease on the land, and the lease is only allowed to be for 30 years times 3. So you're allowed to lease that land for 90 years. After 90 years, the person can come back. However, your house sits on their land. You still own the house. So they have to either purchase the house from you or ask you if you will lease your house to them if they want to use the house. Do you see what I mean? And they can't destroy your house because that's your chattel, that's yours. So then they've got the land and you've got the house. And so they have to come to an agreement with you that they will buy the house from you or they will lease the house from you. You see? So you still don't get to get everything. And so then they said...
That's obviously a protection, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was a protection for both parties in Thailand.
Yeah, that's the protection for both parties. But in the end, Thailand relented to America because America wouldn't bring Starbucks, they wouldn't bring McDonald's, they wouldn't bring any of their franchises, they wouldn't bring them to Thailand because they were not allowed to own the property. And so they made a separate agreement with America that America were permitted to buy the land in the paper title, not the pure title, but in the paper title. Now, the pure title rests with the king, the Thai king, and they were permitted to buy in paper title so that they could have their businesses. And so they only did that agreement with them, and then America agreed to bring all their businesses. That is what had happened. So, you get all these things, and I want my land. But there are many issues involved here to do with that. If you had the entire land of New Zealand, right, that doesn't have an instrument to sit on, then it's just going to be open to corruption and nobody's going to invest, and you end up with empty land that nobody wants to use. And that's still the case in Thailand. You go over Thailand and there are thousands upon thousands of acres of land just sitting there unused. The Thai government, every year the Thai government just gives the farmland away. Lands that are able to be used as farmland are all owned by the government, and every year they allocate the farmland to certain people who are involved with farming and able to run a farm. And if they're not able to run a farm, they're not allowed to get that land. The government just gives it to them. It's not even rented. It's rented like about $50 a year. And because they produce all the food, and so they can't afford to buy, they're farmers, they're poorly farmers, they can't afford to buy land for millions of dollars, but the government wants them to plant food, right? You want the sheep farmers to have sheep so that you have meat, right? You want the cow farmers to have, well, they can't afford to buy 20,000 acres of land. So they have to show the government that they are able to do that farm work, and the government will give them the land. And if they're not able to do that and use it for farmland, the government will take it back from them as well. They can give it, they can take it. So the Maori is saying, hey, that's my farmland. But it isn't, because you want food, right? Yeah. So the government says you're not allowed to just own farmland just on your tribe can't own farmland because your tribe might not be able to do the farming. And if your tribe can't do the farming, well, there's no food. You're all going to freaking starve.
Yep.
Anya. So you want the farmers to have money so they can feed you. So that's why they do all that. So where are we up to? So there's many different issues in land. It's not simply of a case of this is my land and this is my tribe was there 400 years ago. It isn't that. It isn't as simple as that. We'd all like it to be as simple as that, but it just isn't. So then the Crown grants. Crown grants for Maori lands that I just said to you can be counted. If you want to lease it, you can lease it as you please. The finance. The council may obtain advances for the general management and cost of survey of the Maori estate, and a lien shall attach to Maori lands for such advances. So you are permitted, so in this case, you're permitted to go and get loans to advance your council, advance your parliament, whatever it is, and the government will give you a loan. Well, who do you think you're getting that loan off? The Queen or us. You were getting the loan off of us because we were the ones that were doing the work, that were bringing the industry. And so you were able to go and get a loan from our taxes. So we and you were paying taxes, and you were permitted to go and get a loan, but they would put a lien on your land, which meant that if you didn't pay back that loan, the loan would be a very cheap loan with very little interest. But if you didn't pay it back, then that land would go into the Queen's pot. Now, the Queen's pot always rests with the country of New Zealand. It always rests with the Crown. We are the Crown. So if you don't pay back your loan, that went into the pot. And if you paid back the loan, it didn't go into the pot. If you ever went back and said, right, we're going to pay that loan, then you could get it out of the pot if you wanted to. The proceeds of all sales and all rents and income derivable from the sale, letting, and disposition of Maori lands shall be paid into a bank to the credit of the Maori estate account, and all compensation and other monies to which they may be or may become entitled shall form part of the same fund. So all the money, so these iwi that are working at the top have decided that all this money only belongs to them. It doesn't belong to all of the people that had lost their chiefs and became slaves. So all the money actually belongs to all of you. And that little $50 billion empire that they're sitting on, that all belongs to you. And they're not giving you your fair share, I'm telling you. All salaries, office and other expenses of the council, including expenditure on the common property, shall be paid out of the fund. So all this council, once it was set up, you were permitted to get a loan, but once it was all set up, and once you were getting rents, and once you were getting lease money, and once you were getting all of that kind of thing, then all of your little councils were supposed to be paid. All of your councils were supposed to be paid from this fund because you were supposed to be making money. So, but this is where I'm saying this we can use in court. this is where I'm saying that all the other Indigenous people that come from the Pacific Islands, they're not privy to this fund, you see. So they haven't contributed the land and they haven't contributed the money to be able to be taking this. I don't mind. I'm all right. I can talk with him. He's all right.
You're with them.
Don't worry about him. He's all right, Sharon. You can hear us, can't you, Sharon? Just.
I would be sitting beside me and the child is screaming. No.
He's.
I will watch it again later.
He's joining in the talks, so he just wants to join in and participate. So this is a great thing. He's participating now. So this is where there's the problem, because the United Nations Indigenous rights, where they're saying that all these people should be entitled to exactly the same when they only turned up yesterday. In an actual fact, even if we're talking about the Crown lands, let's be truthful. Where are all the Crown lands derived from originally? They're derived from your people. So your people, no matter, are always contributing to what goes on in New Zealand. You are always contributing. And that is why they're saying we are one people. And I'm saying no. They have we contributed quite a lot of labour, and we contributed all the industry, and we contributed all but they always have contributed all of the land, because they took your land to build the roads, they took your land to build the railways, and so you should be entitled to all of these things that we want for you, but not every man and his dog, not the Pacific Islanders, not the Islamic groups that are coming, not the refugees that are coming, not the whoever, even the homosexual groups are not entitled to these special things, because they haven't contributed like you have always and continue to do so. So that's why I'm against the We Are One policy that the Seymour guy is trying to come up with. No. And I'm against the Indigenous policy of the UN as well. I'm against both of them because they're both wrong.
Yeah. Because they can go home.
Yes.
They can go home and, jump around on their land.
They can go home.
You can't go anywhere.
You can't go anywhere, and neither can we. But we can't either, because we've been there since the 1800s, and our right of return was removed from us in 1983. They removed it from us, but the islanders can, if they've got one parent from another country, they can go back. If you're born to two New Zealand-born parents, there ain't nowhere to run to, baby.
No.
You can't run.
No.
And all of them are able to run. Now, they're saying that they've got refugee status because they're saying they had no nationality. They brought them to New Zealand with no nationality, and they were stateless. So they decided to give them a New Zealand nationality as their first nationality. Now, that should be stopped for a start. They're giving them a first nationality of New Zealand, and then they've also got nowhere to run to. But guess what? They want them to be entitled to all of this stuff. But you know what? Push comes to shove. If they, it's not fair. The country that did not give them their status in that country, they were the ones. Don't dump your problem on New Zealand. Don't dump it on us. They were in a country, they have lived there for 5-6 generations, and that country won't give them citizenship. That is not our problem. We're a very
especially
small...
when you've got Maori that are on our streets with nowhere to go. And if they do try and go home, they've got to prove themselves. Who are you? No, there's no... Those ones come, house and home those that are on the streets that were that whakapapa to New Zealand born parent, like New Zealand, generational parents.
Those
Yes,
people,
before-
if they were stateless, then they should not have been brought to New Zealand in the first place.
Exactly.
They shouldn't be bringing stateless people to New Zealand and giving them a New Zealand first nationality status. Because this is what happened with Australia. Those people, now you see, I've done this before, but I'll just say it one more time. So I'm in Thailand. If I commit a heinous crime in Thailand, they deport me back to New Zealand, my first nationality status. But if I'm in New Zealand and I commit a heinous crime, New Zealand can't send me anywhere. But if they're stateless and they're in New Zealand and they're given New Zealand nationality as a first nationality, we've got to pay for them to have 24-hour surveillance to protect New Zealand people from them, and they can't be deported because we've given them a first nationality status. No, I'm saying no, they should not be allowed to do that. I'm sure that if the New Zealand natives knew that that was the case, the New Zealand natives would say no as well to that. While their own people. So I just don't think that New Zealand should be allowed to do it. We don't have stateless people in New Zealand, and why create a community of stateless people in New Zealand when we never had that in the first place? All they've done is taken that country's problem and they've said to that country, please give them a nationality. That country has said no. The country that they originally came from has said no, we're not giving them a nationality. And they've scooped them up and dumped them in New Zealand and given us their problem solved for the United Nations. That's
only on the back of Maori being put under human rights, isn't it?
Yes.
That's how that's happened.
Yes.
On that back, the indigenous, whatever the hell it is.
Because they said that you were in the indigenous family. And they've got 370 million refugees, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of those are stateless, but they all come into the indigenous family. And so since you're in the indigenous family, they're going to bring them to the indigenous family countries. And I had something important to say there, but I've gone and forgotten it. So yes, that's how that all works out under the indigenous family. It's very unfair. I was going to say something important. Oh, never mind, I'll go ahead.
Was it to do with Aussie?
No, the stateless people, something to do with the stateless people. Oh dear, it's just gone. Never mind.
So where would they go to? Once we've gotten all of this done and we've gotten back what we wanted, what happens to those stateless people then? Can we say, no, we want you
yes,
out?
This is what you're all, I think what you're not all realising is how much power you have, is that you can undo everything that's been done under this deception. And so you can, at any time, you can say to the United Nations, we want out of this, and we want out of this, and we want to be only indigenous to our own country and our own country's laws, and we don't want everybody else included in this. Yeah, and then you can remove yourself. So yes, you certainly can do that. Oh, that's just so important what I wanted to say, but I just...
Well, we can't afford them. We can't afford...
Well,
can't afford it.
You really can't. And so we're going to have to go back and be Maori again and stop being tribal. So I'll go back to... Oh, I'll turn off my camera. I'll go back to here and see if I can remember what it was. But yes, the stateless people... well, the United Nations is just decided to move their problem to all the Western nations, and it's time that the Western nations stood up as a Commonwealth and said, no, you make those countries be accountable. We don't move their problem here. And So anyway, where are we up to? So those people don't contribute. Well, all salaries, everything shall be so subject to such expenditure and the repayment of such advances, the fund from time to time available, here it goes, shall be distributed half yearly between and amongst the Maoris in the shares and proportions to which the chiefs and Maori people are respectively entitled to the same. So do you get a twice yearly payment? Can I ask that little thing? So you know that 50 billion empire that they're sitting on, you are all supposed to receive a twice yearly payment from there, from the $50 billion.
No, those must be the entitled ones. Because no, my father and them didn't either. My father, who will be 100, who would have turned 100 this year in February, they were always poor. Like, and you know, that's neither here or there nor there. But they never got anything. Some of the one of my kids whakapapas to a tribe, and thankfully they've you know, a lot of their stuff is filtering down to her, thank goodness. But as for mine, and I'm Maori, yeah, wow, good luck with that. I wouldn't hold out hope.
Well, you're supposed to get paid from the $50 billion fund twice yearly in a proportion fair to your tribal numbers. Before making such distribution, it shall be competent for the council to expend such portions of the fund as may be considered necessary in making the common property available for settlement and occupation. So they were supposed to, when the chiefs got allocated the amount of land for every man and woman and child, they were to choose a large piece of land, and then that land was going to be for the settlement, and each of you or them were to be given a piece of land on that settlement, as some of it was to be for common property and some of it was to be your settlement on personal property, that each person was given one piece. The accounts of the council shall be audited by public auditors and published in Maori and English languages. So do you get that published? So that all has to be published. So this was to be done as a collective. As soon as conveniently may be complete, Maori census shall be taken, distinguishing the chiefs from the common people. Do you know who all the iwi are that represent you today? I would say that you don't. Because the most common complaint... Yeah, the most common complaint that I'm hearing from everybody is they don't actually know exactly who the Maori leaders are anymore. Not truly.
Not anymore, considering my tupuna of mine was one of the first, was one of the original Maori, you know, Waitangi.
They should be taking this census should be taken every few years, and every single person should know exactly who the leaders are of each tribe, what their role is at the council, who the decision makers are. That census should be done for every single tribe, and you should be aware, and that should distinguish. So you all come under the common people and they all come under the chiefs, but they are presently acting as if only the chiefs have got the power and they're making all the decisions for you. But in fact, you are the common people and you have rights just like we have rights in the normal public arena. You have common people rights. So you come, at that point in time, you come in as a collective, not as individual tribes. See, they've separated you back into your tribes.
Yep.
And each common people of each tribe doesn't know what the common people of the other tribes are doing and everything.
When I was working in corrections, the majority of the prisoners, Maori prisoners that I spoke to, didn't even know their whakapapa. Like that all that has just been gone, and the majority, many Maori, many Maori gave up on it.
The reason
like
why
a lot
they
of them gave up because
They did.
well, they didn't need it.
Because they didn't know.
No, but
Yeah.
also, but they don't you see what they did? This is what they did also in England, is that they made you all a commoner people that were all equal. Everybody would get the same. So when you had $20 million from your, what they did is it's no different from the Queen in England. All the estate was combined into one, and all the money derived from that went to each of you equally, not tribally. So it wasn't this tribe is bigger so they get 10 million, and this tribe is smaller so they get 1 million, and this tribe is very small so they get 20,000. It wasn't like that. They put it all into one pot, and you no longer needed to act in a tribal capacity like the English people didn't need to either, because you were all privy to a fair share of whatever money any of the chiefs made. So the chiefs were in charge of each tribal area, but the money that they derived from those areas went into a commoner fund of which you were all privy to. So that $50 billion empire that they're sitting there, every single man, woman, and child, no matter your tribal status, no matter your non-tribal status, every single person that is registered as a Maori is entitled to a piece of that fund. Do you see? And so it doesn't matter if you know your tribe or not. You became commoners. Because
but then in that you have, like, you take away the layer of Maori, you take away the layer of colour, you've got man there, and man is greedy.
Yes.
And they look after their, so that, I mean, that's half the, you look at them and just think, not for myself, but people with less than, they have nothing, and you think, why aren't you helping? Where the ones that are helping, like, everyone gives donations to different ones. I know a kaupapa that's going out, giving his time, and people donate to him just to feed Māori. So no, wherever that money's going, it ain't trickling down to where it's needed.
Well, it's just what's very upsetting to me. I don't even care, because my own brother is living in a caravan, so I don't even care when you're saying just to feed. It's actually people are having to donate food just to feed people in New Zealand, and yet they continue to bring in 4,000 Ukrainian, so many thousand Afghans, the 1,700 refugees, the 3,000 Pacific Islanders. They're continuing to bring them in, and yet we've got people in our country that are having to go around and distribute food parcels because people don't have food. Now, there's something wrong here. It ain't making sense to me.
And yet they're finding the money to dish out to these people. I mean, to all these other people, other than
it costs.
And maybe that's why they brought in the refugees, is because they know that there's 50 billion sitting there, so you might as well have them. You can afford to pay for them. I mean, where is it for our people, as you say, that are out on the street that are struggling? No.
Well, and then they've stopped doing the criteria to be New Zealand Maori as well. I don't want to get into that today, because I want to get this finished from Sydney David taiwhanga, but but you are entitled twice a year to get, no matter what tribe you're from, you're entitled twice a year to get some money from that fund, and you don't need to belong to a tribe, because there are thousands of New Zealand Maori that don't belong to a tribe, and they're entitled to a piece of this pie. And yet we've got thousands of islanders that have tagged themselves on as and whānau, not even born to New Zealand, tagging them on through the marriage. The sister married the Maori and had a child, and they've become whānau, and they're privy to all of this, when we've got thousands of New Zealand Maori that don't know their tribe, and they are not privy to any of this. So that is not correct either.
We have got Maori that they have so dumbed down that they're not aware of this. I mean, I wasn't even aware of it.
It's too much. It's too much for them to comprehend as well.
Who could comprehend it? Who could? They've put so much on your shoulders. They have literally put the whole world on your shoulders. Who can? And
stop. That can stop. That can stop.
I know they really have, and they really have just put too much on your shoulders. It's psychological abuse. It's not fair. Right, well, let's move on. The chiefs will be divided into classes according to their rank and distinction as they may determine. And the shares of each class shall be greater than the shares of the common people, in such proportion as they may also. So they had their piece of the pie. They were supposed to give themselves a fair amount of shares to account for their chiefly status, because they had to do all the work for all of this. And so some of it was supposed to be for the commoners, and some of it was supposed to be for the chiefs, according to the proportion of how many people they had. Certificates in accordance with the census shall be issued to every Maori, that's your birth certificate, representing the share to which he or she is entitled to participate in the Maori Estate Fund, and every distribution thereof. Such a certificate shall not be transferable or assignable or be available in bankruptcy, which means that you can never ever leave these lands. These lands, see, they've committed a crime here because they've removed this from you. And you're all supposed to have this certificate, and you should be able to trace it and get your distribution of this fund. A register of such certificates shall be kept, and upon the death of any holder of such certificate may be transferred or a new certificate issued to his legal personal representatives. The shares of interest shall be payable to their parents or guardians for their maintenance and education. Included in that.
Could this mean Māori land? Because
yes,
that's easy to transfer. You have no trouble. That's a very easy way to transfer your to go in and succeed in Māori land. I'm wondering if that's what this refers to.
They said what he said was you have to be clear. They did distinguish the chiefs. So in order to be a chief, you had to have a tribe, right?
Yeah.
They did distinguish the chiefs, and they let the chiefs keep their individual tribal status. But when it came to the commoner people, they didn't give you a tribal status. And the reason was because most of them had lost their chiefs, and they were Mokai slaves. And they wanted them to come back and settle on the lands. And they had all been displaced because of the decapitation of their chiefs. Te Rapara would decapitate the chief, kill the whole family, and then go and sell all of that tribe to various different missionaries, and everybody became displaced. And so when they wanted all those people to come back to their land, those lands were then owned by different new chiefs because your chiefs were dead. those chiefs were dead, right? So the new chief that had taken it, but he would give that land to only his people, but there were people there before him that he had decapitated the chief, and he is not prepared to give it back to them. So what they did is they said,
I'm just wondering if this fund that they talk about is referring mainly to land, because it's easy. Like, you know, I've succeeded to my dad's shares. Yeah. So I wonder if that's what it means when they talk about the fund, whether or not there's it's referring to land.
It is, but in some cases, because there would have been the chiefly lot. There's another bit here. There was the chiefly lot, which belonged only to your tribe, but there was the commoner lot that was a common pool of land that was given to all of you, including the ones that didn't have chiefs. So there's two sets here, and the Anglo people also came under a trust of the common people as well. We have the Queen Victoria Trust that, if we can date back to 1846, we also go into the Queen Victoria Trust, and that is a commoner land. But you also had your chiefly land, where your those chiefs that had not been killed and still had their tribes, they also had a separate one. So there was a double dippy here. But the Queen gave some lands, because you can go back to that place where they allocated the land. The first piece. The first piece here.
Oh, yeah.
There shall be set apart an area of land equivalent to acres for each man, woman, and child. Have a listen. Such area shall be selected in such parts of the North and South Island as the Maoris may decide upon. The allotments shall be selected by the chiefs and people according to priority in rank. So the chiefs were given an allotment of land, which would include all of the people that had been displaced with the lands as well. And then they would allocate each man, woman, and child was given a piece, and that went into that chief's pot. And so say he chose, let's say he chose Hokianga. He said, right, I'm in the Hokianga, and there's so many people, and there's so many tribes. So they said, okay, you're going to have, in that group there, you've got 20,000 people, so we're going to give you 20,000 acres. And then the chief would give each person maybe only a half an acre, and then he would keep the rest in his chiefly pool. And you would get a piece for your settlement.
Yeah.
That's how I read it. And so then when you, and then out of all of his pool, he also would allocate land to,
possibly Maori or something.
Hang on. Might be later. I'll have to tell it in a minute. So then, so all those lands, we'll have to reread it, Maxine, but all those lands, there was a separate bit that was for chiefs, and then he was to take part of that and give it to individuals, and the other part would stay in his power. and then he would be able to rent that out, lease it for shops or lease it to people to rent for shops.
Oh, yeah, it's in the preface at the top.
Is it?
Or preface, yeah. The chief objects I have in view, the chief objects I have in view are, and then it goes on to say, to secure Māoris the management and market value of their own estate, to divide the estate equitably amongst them, and to protect their estate from waste. And then it goes on. So
it was a functioning government, is exactly the same as what we have, except it was in regards to all of your lands, and then we were in regards with the protection of the country and all of our lands. And then and it even says there, the accounts of the council shall be done in Maori and English language. So we didn't just throw out your Maori language. Everything had to be written in both languages. That's just a lie that Peter Sharples said, that we removed your language from you. We never. Every single thing was written up in both languages. So they well knew what they were doing. They were working hard. And there was no deception here. This is just a lie that the Queen deceived. Nobody deceived anybody. And then, so that, and then that would all go into, so then that would go into the common people. So all the money that he got, some of the lands would be to his chiefly, because it says the chiefs will be divided into their classes, and they will decide how many shares are going to go to them as individuals, and only for maybe their tribe or just individual, and how many shares were going to go to the common people out of all that extra land that he had. So everybody got a piece, and then there was the commoner land, and then the chiefs would get some of that, some extra shares of that, and the common people would get some shares of that, and it wasn't tribal. That went to everybody. What they decided would go to the chiefs was separate as individual tribes, but what they all decided would go to the common people went into the pot of everyone, and it didn't matter whether you had a tribe or not. And that you were supposed to get paid twice a year. So then he says...
No, we must be interest, they share. Oh, bloody, we must be rich.
You should all be rich. You're a very rich people, and there's absolutely no reason why any of you should not have a lot of money out of that $50 billion empire that they're sitting on up there.
And the worst part about it is we wouldn't have homeless Māoris, and
no,
for them wouldn't be going around feeding people what they all use us.
There's absolutely no reason why they couldn't have taken a piece of that land, used some of that 50 billion, built prefabs on it with toilets, and said you can go and live there for free. It didn't have to be fancy. You can go and live there for free, and then when you get enough money, you can move out and be on your own.
Yeah. Oh, every prison in New Zealand is on Māori land.
Oh,
We were told
you
that
didn't
in
get
training.
it.
Every prison in New Zealand is on Māori land. So
Well,
they've obviously kept to that.
They did. They built the prisons for you.
Yeah.
They said, here, you can come and stay here for free.
For free.
But they're full of foreigners now too, aren't they? They're getting a nice... All those foreigners you see over here in Thailand, if you commit a crime over here, you only stay here for about a year or so, and then they deport you because they don't want to pay for it. And you're deported. Yeah. You're deported before your sentence is finished. They automatically deport you. If you commit a crime in this country that's a prisonable offence of more than 2 years, you are deported back to your country, and you're never allowed back here again. You're on a blacklist, and you can't come back. And they don't care if you've got...
There's a hell of a lot of overseas of foreigners in our prisons.
Yeah.
For a long time. Yeah. A lot of them are sitting there waiting, and it's what is it, $1,000 a day?
Yeah.
It's thousands, hundreds of thousands.
They're getting had that Somalian guy. I think I showed him once before, but what was his name?
There's Indians, there's Americans, there's meaning. So that must be where we have to go and collect, Sharon.
Yeah, you see this guy here? Here, I'll show you. Now, this man here, so you see this man here? See, this is what this, I'm going to put this video up. So, do you see this man? Can you see? Oh.
You're not sharing the screen.
Right, can you see my screen now?
Right.
You see this man here?
Yeah.
Can you see this miserable piece of shit? So here's Chris Barfoy here saying, bring them in, yeah, bring them in. Thanks, Chris Barfoy. See this guy here, this, I assume, was brought in as a stateless man, and he has raped, even his own family have begged for him to be deported, while Chris Barfoy says, no, he has his right. They can't deport him. They couldn't stop him from attacking New Zealand women, and since they couldn't deport him under the United Nations law because he was stateless, I assume they've given him a New Zealand nationality. They now have him on 24 hours surveillance, 24 hours surveillance, which we have to pay for. Well, that's going to be in an 8-hour day, 3 teams of 2 people. So that's 6 people, 24 hours. They have to have 2 days a week. So you have to add on the 2 days that they have off. Of those 6 people that are on full overtime for working all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So you've got, and so 3 teams for Saturday, 3 teams for Sunday. You're looking at, so that's another 6. You're looking at around about 12 people to be on the 24-hour surveillance, watching him all day, every day. There are, the New Zealand government refuses to reveal how many of these people are under that status in New Zealand, and they won't report them. They won't deport them. So this is what Chris Farfoy is fighting for as the immigration matters and for immigration in New Zealand. That's what Chris Farfoy is fighting for. Piece of shit that you are. You know, I am going to call him a piece of shit because I don't care. He's supposed to be protecting the people of New Zealand and making sure that the New Zealand people are in a safe environment and making sure that people like him can be deported and bringing in nice people into New Zealand. And so, so how did we get onto that? Why are we talking about that?
we were talking about the land.
Oh, the prisons, you see, yes, the prisons are all on Maori land. Well, you don't mind the Maori, some of the Maori people, some of the prisons, they're not great, but they get 3 meals a day, they get their health care, and some of them get a room by themselves and everything. Well, these people here are deliberately committing crimes.
With a shower, shower.
And people like this guy here are deliberately committing crimes so that they can keep going to the prison. So they get the prison in there is better than any of the worst situation that they can have in their own country is better in the New Zealand prison. They'd rather spend their days in there. They're quite happy to. So they will go around and continue. Yeah. So now we've got to pay. So rather than let them commit these molestation acts, they're giving them the 24-hour surveillance. It's ridiculous. So then he says here, now here he says, the Treaty of Waitangi appeared in the following form, and he has used the English version. And he said, the English, have a listen to what he says very clearly. He says, the Treaty of Waitangi appeared in the following form, which we here insert for the sake of easy reference as the English document only appears once in these pages. And he says that it's the English document that they refer to, when they're wanting to look at the laws, not the Maori document. They use the English document because that's the one, and he says it right here, that because that's the one that was sealed by the Queen. The English Queen would never put her seal on a Maori language document, and it was never sealed, but this was sealed. And then they've used the English version, which we use. He says, now therefore we, the chiefs of the Confederation of the United Tribes of New Zealand, being assembled in Congress at Victoria in Waitangi. Well, I don't know what that means. And we, the separate and independent chiefs, they obviously called the Congress of Waitangi the Congress of Victoria, meaning they were under Victorian law. The separate and independent chiefs of New Zealand claiming authority over tribes and territories which are specified after our respective names, having been made fully to understand the provisions of the foregoing treaty, accept and enter into the same in the full spirit and meaning thereof, in witness of which we have attached our signatures or marks at the places and the dates respectively specified, done at Waitangi. So, on this day of February in the year of our Lord 1840. So this is the first meeting, and so they acknowledged the English treaty. They did. The first meeting at which this treaty was presented to the Northern Chiefs for their approval and adoption was held at Busby Station at Waitangi. See, they've got Busby Station at Waitangi. Where is the Congress at Victoria? Which is different. On the 5th and 6th of February. So this was done in a different place. There must have been a Congress at Victoria, which I'm assuming that they had two tents. And one of them was the Victorian tent, and one of them would be the chiefly tent done with Busby, I assume. I don't know. You're going to have to figure this out. But his was on the 5th and 6th of February.
Yeah, because it says the first meeting at which this treaty was presented to the Northern Chiefs, whereas above it says that's when it must have been signed.
Yeah, on the 6th. So here's the 5th and 6th, in which was fully reported by the...
that's when they signed it.
Yeah. Fully reported by the Lieutenant Governor to His Excellency Sir George Gibbs in the following dispatch. The Herald of the 5th, I have the honour to acquaint Your Excellency that immediately on my arrival here, I circulated notices printed in the native languages that on this day I would hold a meeting of the chiefs of the Confederation and of the High Chiefs who had not yet signed the Declaration of Independence, for the purpose of explaining to them the commands I had received from Her Majesty the Queen, and of laying before them the copy of a treaty which I had to propose for their consideration. Accordingly, a vast number of chiefs with a multitude of followers crowded in from every quarter, and at 12 this day they assembled under the spacious tents, decorated flags, which had been previously erected at Waitangi by the direction of Captain Neos of this ship, and so on with several other dispatches of Lieutenant Governor Hobson and Gibbs, and also. With the foregoing remarks and extracts from parliamentary documents, we leave these sheets to the scrutiny of all interested inquiries. However curious they may appear now, they will become much more so as time rolls on. So they're only leaving it, they're leaving the sheets. They left several sheets behind for them to scrutinise. And whatever may be the opinions of the present or future generations as to the policy adopted in 1840, it is certain that without some such agreement between the two races as was determined by the Treaty of Waitangi, the Queen's authority and government would never have been so peaceably admitted and established in this country. So this was written by Hanson Turton in 1887. So 1888 was when Taiwhanga's constitution came into being, but this was all prepared in 1887, together with the 1852 constitution. Just shows that how all our historical documents were created together, that we worked very hard, both of our peoples worked very hard to find solutions agreeable to all of us. And it just proves that, in an actual fact, all of our peoples were not fighting and screaming and killing each other, that we were a large group of people that were working very hard to bring peace to this country, and working very hard as two peoples, that we knew the task at hand. And I think that up until 1975, we had done quite a good job, actually.
Yep.
I think. And we're all back. Yeah. So he said that they recognise this treaty according to the grounds of the Congress at Victoria, which are different from the grounds of Mr. Busby's station at Waitangi. They're not the same. So then this comes under the 1852. Now I want you to read this extremely carefully. It says here, and this is in the 1852 Constitution that our peoples created together, Section 71, and whereas it may be expedient that the laws, customs, and usages of the Aboriginal, you were Aboriginals then, or native inhabitants of New Zealand, so they must have named you, they only started using Maori in legal documents in the late 1800s, when they wanted you to be a common people together. Previously to that, you were called Aboriginals and natives in your tribes. So far as they are, now listen, it is expedient that the laws, customs, and usages of Aboriginal or native inhabitants of New Zealand, so far as they are not repugnant to the general principles of humanity, should for the present be maintained for the government of themselves in all their relations and dealings with each other, and that particular districts should be set apart within which laws, customs, or usages should be so observed. Now that came about in 1888 with Sydney taiwhanga. So it is a lie that we didn't set it up. We frickin' well did.
Yes.
And they're lying and saying that we didn't. The United Nations and Peter Sharples have lied, because we did. Now listen carefully to what it says. It should be lawful for Her Majesty by any letters patent to be issued under the Great Seal of the United Kingdom from time to time to make provisions for the purposes aforesaid. Any repugnancy of any such natives' laws, customs, or usages to the law of England or to any part thereof in any wise is notwithstanding. When they use notwithstanding, they're using the 1688 Bill of Rights, and that comes under the non-obstance made void. This applies to all British parliaments, all New Zealand parliaments, all Australian parliaments, all Commonwealth parliaments, any of them that make any law that are repugnant to this document here, then that we are notwithstanding, meaning non-obstance made void. That means that they try to make any law that overrules any of the things in this 1688, it is repugnant and will be void. It will not be accepted. So whenever you see this in the Maori websites, they will only show you the first section up to observed, and they cut out the second section that says it shall be lawful for Her Majesty under the Great Seal of the United Kingdom to not withstand any laws that the New Zealand Maori make that are repugnant to the 1688. So once we had a constitution, we were only permitted to make subordinate laws, and as those laws, none of them were permitted. And so you in your stream were allowed to make your Maori laws under tikanga, and we in our stream were allowed to make our parliamentary laws under the parliament, right? Like under having a license or whatever it is that they want to have. You can have anything that you want to have in your country. But if either of those two subordinate laws were repugnant, repugnant to the 1688, the Queen could come in and that would go to the Supreme Court and it would be notwithstanding, and they would not permit you to have it. So if you made a law that we're going to cut off the fingers of the guy that comes and steals our chickens, that would be repugnant to the 1688. That would be a cruel punishment, and you couldn't have that. But if you made a law that if that man over there steals my chicken and he's got 5 chickens over at his house, he's going to have to pay back to us all his 5 chickens, and he's not allowed to have chickens anymore. You could make a law like that, and that would not be repugnant. So that's the kind of laws that everyone was permitted to make, including us. So then he goes on to create, here's your tikanga law. Oh, freaking hell, I didn't even know this existed. Here is your tikanga law. Can you see it? It says at the top there, read this, ngā tikanga. And this was created in ngā tikanga, harini rawiri taiwhanga, ngā tikanga, in 1888. You always had your tikanga law, and they're fucking liars. They're liars. Peter Sharples is a liar. The United Nations is a liar. They're all liars. Look, you have had your tikanga law since 1888, when you had learned enough about a parliamentary system, and you went on to write all. I'm in tears here because I just feel like I mustn't cry. I'm not allowed to cry, am I? You had all your tikanga law in 1888 because they've been lying about us. They lie about the Queen. They have lied about Her Majesty, and they've lied about my people. And I'm not, you didn't, but they have. Peter Sharples, Rawiri Waititi, Manuka Hanari, they're lying. When they said we didn't let you have your own governance, when we freaking did.
Yes, you did.
And we were on.
We wouldn't have had the Maori Affairs if we didn't.
No.
We wouldn't have had our own hospitals and our own injustices if we didn't.
You had everything. Everything that we had in the Commonwealth, you had everything. And they have destroyed
it. But it doesn't fit the narrative of blame and colonisation and who to blame because we're overtaken. It doesn't fit the narrative, so they've managed to fuck us all.
And they, yes, fuck us all. And yes, and they fucked us all. And they were not able to attach all their other groups onto this because it was only for you, not for every man and his dog. It was only for you. And so they could not attach the United Nations Indigenous rights onto you. So they had to create this evil story about Our Majesty the Queen and this evil story about the Anglo people and this evil so that they could revamp it all and put all Indigenous people under your tikanga law. But it wasn't. So you see here that he's got the tikanga law in 1888 and it's got all the lists for your tamariki. Now this was done in 1888, so we know you had your ngā whenua law, ngā whenua kōri, ngā whenua 8 the Maori, Mahikora, the katoa. You know what this all means. The meat pa'ano, the whenua mongirori. Is this the names of tribes or what? Whenua Maori manga kanihira, Takuti.
Is that on Te Ara?
I think this is the, I think
The original tikanga.
the original tribes, and each one of them.
You better save that.
Each.
It'll go missing.
I'll take a picture of it, right? Yes, take a picture of it. Good thinking. Oh, I can't.
You better take a picture of the whole book. How many pages does that have, Kate?
Hang on. Hang on, I've gotten a bit stuck here with my video.
I don't blame you.
I've done something.
Because the lies that have come out that didn't fit their narrative of how poorly the Maoris were treated by the colonisers. And it's all there. It's all there in black and white.
Yes, it is, Sharon. So I assume you're going to have to look at this because I don't know. I need the Maori to look at it, but it's got your the ngā tamariki, all the laws that are going to be for your children, the ongahia, the mongahia, the the iwi nui tonu. This was all the ongakoti, the whakapai whenua, the tūwhanga ongi money. These must be tribal names, I think.
Can you give me the website and I'll have a look?
I've already sent it to you.
I'm a with, well, I can take it back 6 generations at the moment.
So, where's Maxine?
She knows the Maori.
Got your name up there, so you're going to be up in the public, so I hope you're not scared of anything, because it's all going to be, I can post this, right? Is everybody agreeable?
Yeah, I'm reading this.
I think we just need to have conversations where we just sit down together, and I'll repost it for you.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just want the website.
So there's that one.
We can post it to Maori Parents.
I have sent this to you many times, Maxine, and told you to read it, but I don't think that you realise how important it is.
No, I haven't got the I want to see the tikanga. Oh, yeah, got it. The tikanga of it. Now I've lost
my page. Oh, here. So that is I just clicked on that. So that is the tikanga piece, and that is all your tikanga laws. So they are lying. They really are lying. I had never seen that. I had never looked at that before because I didn't think it was important. But it's just lately they've been going on about tikanga and that you should have tikanga law. But bullshit, you always had tikanga law. You never didn't have it. And then they're raving on, oh, it has to be in your language. It always was in your language. But what they're doing is giving it to you in this Te Reo Maori that is not your language. You would have to go back and find the original. Well, you can click on them. Look. You can just click on it. Hear it all. So this tells you it all. It's all there.
The tikanga now is.
They did use Aotearoa though. I hate to see that word Aotearoa. So here is all your tikanga law.
It's really changeable.
And this is, but the key point, and this was finished by the 24th of October, 1888. This is the Ko Te Tiriti, where they've done the Tiriti in the Te Reo Maori, and they've put in here, Wirimi Hopi Hona. I don't know what that's about. So this is the original Tiriti, and then here is your Article 71. And in this Article 71, it is telling them that they must follow the 1852 Constitution, and it calls you o Nuturini, Te Chua Nui o Nuturini. They're freaking liars. You had this 1852 Constitution was yours, in your language, for you, in your country. And it was called Te Chua Nui o Nuturini. And it says there that you would be accountable to the Queen if you made laws repugnant to the 1688. So it says there in there. And it says that you will have your own governance. And it does say in the previous, and there's all your tikanga laws that I assume, I don't really know. I assume maybe it is the 1852 Constitution done in Maori. We'll have to go and research it. Maybe the 1852 Constitution was, in fact, your true New Zealand Constitution, and they removed it, and that's why they had the power to remove it in 1986, because maybe it belonged to you in the first place. Maybe your people wrote it. But it's all up there, and you can't deny it. So that's the last piece. But there was a piece that I can't find in here, but there was a piece in the original one. So that was the Te Chua o Nuturini. This comes all from a book, The Proposals of Sydney David Taiwhanga, MHR for the Colonisation and Settlement of Maori Lands. So these were all legal documents, and this was the book that came. Look, you see all this English?
Yeah.
That, see all this English? This is all under tikanga law, the whole lot. Yeah, this is, you see here? This is what it is.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, down to 23. And then it is 1, 2, 3, down to 23. That 1852 Constitution was your own constitution in New Zealand Maori language, and they removed it from you in 1986, and it had nothing to do with the Queen. It was yours. It belonged to you. So, and then those were all the laws that you were going to follow. The 1852 Constitution has many more laws in there, much more. I can't remember how many laws it's got. I'll have to look later. But the 1852 Constitution, okay, I think this is how it is. The 1852 Constitution has around about 80-something laws, but of those laws, 23 of them belong to you. So I'm assuming, because I'm still a bit confused myself, everyone. So we have to,
It might be a good thing and might not. It has to be a good thing. I mean, it's history, so.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a. I know this doesn't say so. No, it's not. It's not. This here 23 are the tikanga laws that you wanted. All right,
Yeah.
and then that was to be used in conjunction with the 1852 Constitution and Section 71. Right. So the 1852 Constitution was a separate law, and Article 71 said you could have your own parliaments, and these were after you got that permission, these were the laws that you chose to have in your tikanga law. And then that was carried out in 1888. So it does take a few years to get these things done. They had to write it all, and it had to be all sent to England, and then it had to all be translated, and it does take a few years. So, but included in the tikanga, then they say they recognise this English treaty was recognised, but then over here you had all your tikanga law, but then they then did, they had laws for your taiwhanga. That's the 23 laws. But then they had the treaty in the Maori language, which was called Ko Te Tiriti o Waitangi. I'm not sure if this has been added later or not. And then Article 71. This may have been added later. You would have to go and look at the true.
I'm not sure, but it does look like it's just what we read through in English in Maori. That's what it looks like to me.
It is exactly that. It is everything that was there in English is all in Maori, but it was
Maori
all
version.
it was all written. Obviously, it was written by Maori together with because this is not in the 1852 Constitution. So this must have been that they went after the 1852 Constitution, and he says we use Section 71. After that, they went and created the tikanga law to match it. So this was for you. This did not apply to us. It only applied to you, so it must have been written by you for you. Had to have been, because it didn't apply to us. So this was for yours. So obviously your people would have written it, not us.
Yeah. It looks that way.
It looks like we came up with the 1852 Constitution, and then your people, based on that, went and wrote your tikanga law and had all that translated into English, or they either, I don't know if they wrote it in English and then translated to Maori, or wrote it in Maori and then translated to English. It could have gone either way, but it was written only for your people, and the only people that would have been involved would have been your people. It would have been nothing to do with the Queen or the governors or anything. It was only for you.
Yeah, because at the title of the English section says proposals of Mr. Sidney David Taiwhanga for the colonisation and settlement of Māori land. So it was his offering.
Of what they wanted.
That I'm assuming towards, of what they wanted.
And they did close down the native court, and they did set up the Maori affairs and all of that. So all of that clearly was set up. So this must have happened, and there must be, I reckon your leaders, I'm not going to be rude, but I'll just be rude, but I reckon that your leaders or these leaders that we don't know who they are hiding the proper court documents that were created down at the Maori Land Court to institute all of this. I believe that those documents exist. And
I wonder if we can OIA it.
so it was always called, eh?
I totally agree with that. They hit it.
I wonder if we can OIA it though.
I think that what we need to start doing is, you know what we've got to do, ladies, my lovely ladies, is
I'll go and see if I can find it actually.
just as we call up the Tikanga Law Society and ask them where they are and ask them about this and where are the documents of it and see what they've got to say. Now, if that's not the case, what we're going to have to be doing, just like we've got to take the 1688 back to the English courts, we also need to take all of this to the Waitangi Tribunal and ask for answers. We all got to turn up there together and say, hey, we've got questions. How come they had this? We know it did come to be because of the Maori affairs and all of that. Where are these documents?
Yeah.
I'll go and look for them first. I'll go to the archives and have a look and see if I can find them. And
I believe that there will be, just like we've got Queen Victoria, Victoria documents that we look at all the time. So you see, because all the Maori stuff is hidden, it's private and it belongs only to you and it doesn't belong to us. And so, well, they think that it doesn't.
I'm Maori. I'm going to go and get them.
You've got it. We need you. So here you see the 1865 Native Rights Act. I believe. So you see, when we want to go and find stuff, we can go and research these names or research. I believe that taiwhanga and that tikanga law there must have a legal document similar to this. So that's
It'll
what
be on microfiche.
it will be there. Yeah, it'll definitely be there.
Yeah.
So that's what we need you to find, because we know all of this stuff is on the government website. So we go to the government website and we find it, and then we go and Google into the gazetted items, and there would have been a Maori Gazette. You also will have everything, every single thing that we have. You have exactly the same thing, and so we've got to hunt that out, because we're going to need it. Because I'll just tell the public, because the video's on. What we're fighting for is that I'll speak for I disagree with David Seymour or whatever his name is, and those other groups on the Anglo side that are saying we are one policy and only one government for all people. And I'm saying I'm disagreeing with him, because our native Maori are entitled to all of these things, because that was not only agreed on, but also they contributed all of the land. And so we all can be grateful that they allowed us to all come here. So they contributed all of the land. But I'm not going on the Maori side either with the Indigenous rights at the United Nations, because on the other side, just as our New Zealand Maori contributed the land, we contributed all the labour for 200 years.
Yeah.
We built the roads, we built the railways, we starved, our people fought side by side with the New Zealand Maori to get the missionaries and the land sharks and all of those evil people. We fought side by side to bring this tikanga law to be. And without us fighting side by side, it would never have come to be that you would have all these things. So we all contributed, and so all those Indigenous people that are latching on to you, no. I'm saying no to them, and on the white side, I'm saying no to the We Are One policy. No, but I'm saying there are only 2 rivers. There aren't 3 rivers, there aren't 4 rivers, and there aren't freaking 5 rivers. Where there are 2 rivers, and at the 2 rivers, we have a great dam or a great lake where both rivers combine together to make decisions to protect our country and feed our country and take care. Hey?
And the descendants of both those people.
And the descendants
first.
First. And then we need, and people that are not descendants of those people should not be in our parliament. Because they don't know our history. Their
interests are not for us, let alone in country, other than to give it away.
Yep.
Come what may.
Come what may is to just give it away and they are interested in their specific groups. They've got their Islamic groups, they've got their Chinese groups, they've got their homosexual groups, and they want to give these things. I mean, there's the homosexuals that live in New Zealand that have got this ancestry and they're all entitled, but then they're bringing in thousands of homosexuals that are getting onto the homosexual group to get all of these privileges under the protections of the under the protections of the United Nations, because they come under the minority of the. So no, yes, our homosexual groups that have that ancestry, yes, we can provide certain resources to them, but no, we cannot provide those resources to every man and his dog just because he gets to tag on to the homosexual natives of New Zealand. Well, then I'm saying no. I'm saying no to that. Yeah. So we can, and now what was I talking about, Maxine? Got lost. We're about to give up. We've got 3 more minutes.
Apart from the homosexuals, before that.
Oh, yeah, before the homosexuals. Well, I'm saying that it's not that they don't have a place in society. Yes, they do. But is it right that we're importing 20 or more HIV infected people per year into New Zealand and joining them to our homosexual community and infecting our homosexual community, and we have to pay for all of their health care? Well, why doesn't the United Nations say to their governments, hey, you've got to change your law to allow these people to live in your country and have these rights in your country, and you've got to provide the medicine for them? Why do they get to just scoop them up and dump them in our tiny little country of New Zealand?
On our shore.
We are already doing enough. We take care of 3 Pacific Islands already. Tokelau and Niue, Cook Islands, we take care of them. I mean, there does come a time, how much do they expect the New Zealand people to carry on their shoulders? They can't carry the whole world. They can't.
No. And it was not meant to be that way.
No.
Especially when they're not carrying their own. When they're not carrying their own, it's like if a family in a home were to take in every street kid as an example, if we were to take in everyone, our own kids will suffer due to that. It's no different. Like, you've got to look after your lot first, and then whatever's left over, because there's always something left over, then you can share it.
You can share a wee bit.
You don't take the family down. You don't take the family down or the country down to look after others. Like,
It's
I wanna
stupidity.
see it.
When you see a poor family and you say, hey, come and live at my house for a week till you get on the feet. You don't give all your kids' school fees to their kids so that their kids can go to a private school and your kids can't go to school anymore. You don't say, here, you have all my kids' clothes and now my kids are walking around in rags. Here, you have all the food. Well, that is irresponsible, isn't it? That is very irresponsible.
And it isn't about, it isn't like everyone, it's in them to want to share, but it's no good to the collective if you let that initial lot down to try and save the other lot. It doesn't work. Everyone goes down, and I don't want that. We're already going down. We're going down. We're sinking really fast. We can't afford to take on any more at the moment. Or look after your own first, and then once that's well, then you can, the energy then flows out from there. New Zealand's not well. We're not doing well at all without all these refugees and immigrants and stuff that are coming in, that your finances are going to prop them up. It's like we're sinking. So you have to look after your own first, and then
it's such a small country. Well, it's such a small. Sure.
I totally agree with that.
It's such a small country, though. Let some of the bigger countries take some of the load. Oh, that's what I wanted to tell you. I better tell you now before I forget. Do you know all these countries? Because they put up on the website, if you go and Google, and they say which countries have the most refugees, and that'll come up that Turkey has the most refugees, and then they'll give you all these countries that have got so many refugees. So you think, oh, my lot's not too bad because we've just got 2.5 million. They've got 3 million. They've got 5 million refugees sitting in their country. But no, this is not true. Those refugees, they have to go to that country they have to go to an intermediary country for 1 year before they're permitted to get their refugee status in a Western country. So all these Asian countries have got a pretty good deal going here. Their contribution to the UN is that they take all the refugees that are sent to them on a 1 year basis as the holding country for them to be moved on to the Western countries where they're giving them citizenship and lifetime benefits and houses and jobs. And so rather than allowing 2.5 million refugees to get citizenship status, housing status, schooling status, rather than allowing that, they allow 5 million to come here just only for 1 year to be moved on to a permanent resident. So that's how they're saying that they're contributing to the United Nations for their social responsibility. They've got to put up with them for a year. You've got them for the rest of eternity. Yeah. And
so are they going, is it mainly the Commonwealth countries that are going to get them?
It's only the Anglo countries that are going to get them. Only. The other countries don't take them. None of them. Saudi Arabia, Thailand, Cambodia. Cambodia was offered by Australia. Australia said to Cambodia, we will pay you to keep the refugees in your country, and we will pay you for however much they need to live there, and we will pay you money for having them there. And Cambodia said no. They don't take them, none of them. This is what I'm saying to you. And not only that, each of those refugees gets, now used to be $300, but it might be more, gets $300 from the United Nations per month to be waiting here for the 1 year. They get paid. by the United Nations. So the United Nations puts the bill for 1 year for them to stay in these countries. They're not allowed to go into the Thai schools, the schools, but in the camps where they stay, they set up little schools for them, paid for by the UN. They stay in these holding camps for a year, and then they get given the country wherever they're going to go, which can be any white country, no dark countries, only the white countries, because they looked over at all that we had built together and they said, first of all, the United Nations was pressuring them. The United Nations was saying to them, hey, you have got to take responsibility and take care of your homosexual people, and you can't kill them just because they're homosexuals, right? And you've got to take care. And then they said, United Nations said to them, you have got to, any people that have wandered over from other countries that do not speak your language or whatever, you've got to give them all these rights, houses, education. And they all just said, you know what? If you all want that at the United Nations, and all your countries are demanding this, here, let's just scoop all these up and you take them. And do you know where they learned that from? They learned that from, what's that guy in Cuba? Fidel Castro.
Oh,
America put sanctions on them at the United Nations, put sanctions on them because of the way that they were treating their prisoners and their murderers and their rapists and all of that. So Fidel Castro said, fine. He scooped up all of his worst rapists, murderers, drug addicts, all of them, and he put them on a boat and he gave them a little bit of money and he sent them to America. And he said, because America said, we will take any of your refugees that are in fear for their lives. We will take them and take care of them. So Fidel, he took them all out of the prison and he put them all on a ship and he sent them to America, their worst rapists. And that's what they're doing to New Zealand now. Just by that guy that you see, they're taking the worstest people, diseased people, murderers, rapists, and they're saying, we want them, we're not going to give them any rights, we're not going to give them, and they are stateless, and they're sending them to New Zealand. And Australia has said no. All those people that were on Manus Island, 450 people, Golritz Garaman has secured a deal to have every single one of them brought to New Zealand. They can be rapists, they could be murderers, they can be anything, and many of them are stateless people. And so they are coming to New Zealand and they will be given New Zealand nationality as their first nationality. So this is...
Here's just because I'm thinking, why do they want them here? Why are they bringing them here? And I was thinking, it's out left field, but it's like, if we are that eighth continent that will eventually need to be mined, well, there's your workforce.
Yes, exactly. There's your workforce.
Right.
And they...
inclusive of Maori and Anglos.
Yes, exactly. Well, they're creating a workforce. They're creating many jobs that do not require very much education. And the people that are going to be getting the big jobs up in the high thing, we won't even know who they are. They'll be getting all the money and you'll have your... Well, they're building 3 Latter-day Saint church temples in New Zealand. One has been approved in Auckland, and they've approved a Latter-day Saint temple in Wellington, and the Hamilton Latter-day Saint was supposed to be closed down, but now they've decided to just refurbish it, and you're going to have 3 Latter-day Saint temples in the north of New Zealand, very tiny, tiny, tiny little country with 3 of those temples. In most countries, they have 1. In the huge countries, they have 1. You've got 3 of them being approved by the Ardern government. 3, and all these people that they come in, I'm suspecting, because the Christians of the Latter-day Saint or the Mormon Church or the Catholic Church, they're all killed in those countries. Well, they all pay tithes. So if they be good people and pay their tithes, they can get a letter from their pastor. And if they're bringing in all of those to be the workforce of New Zealand, the Latter-day Saint Church has got an entire country paying them tithes for their business. So that's why they want to invest 3 huge temples, multi-billion-dollar temples in New Zealand, because they're expecting to get the tithes from all the people that they're bringing in, because they're saying they're persecuted because of their Christianity. And what is their Christianity? Latter-day Saint, Mormon, Catholic, you see. And so they bring them in, they're all getting tithes, you see. So this is all it's a huge thing going on here. And the people that are going to desperately suffer 10, 15, 20 years from now are our 2 rivers. I'll call us 2 rivers. We are the 2 rivers. New Zealand is 2 rivers. New Zealand is 2 islands and we're 2 rivers. There ain't 3 rivers. There's only 2. I think we have to get back to our 2 rivers where we once were. We had 2 rivers once before and we managed it before. We need to go back to our 2 rivers and get back to our 2 rivers. I think that needs to be the goal of our country, to be 2 rivers and not 5 rivers. And and all the laws that they've created with all these foreigners in Parliament that are working specifically only towards their people, we have to be able to be strong. We're going to have to be strong, and we're going to have to unsign everything, and everything that was signed under a foreign name is to be considered to be null and void, that is repugnant to our 1688. We can consider those things to be null and void. Any law that they've created that is repugnant to our 1688 is going to be null and void, and we are not withstanding any of them. And if all of those people are going to have to be deported, we'll start with all the foreign prisoners, which will be immediately deported out of New Zealand, and that's going to save us $3 or $4 million a year right off the get-go. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
because we're going down the Googler at 83 million a day, according to the New Nation Party.
Well,
and that's a day.
Yeah, because it's 100,000 per person that we bring in. So all of that, we're just a very small country. There needs to be, they have separated into islanders. It used to be just refugees, but now they've separated refugees into country. So they're going to have Eritreans, Afghanistanis, and so they want to take a fair amount of each one. So they're taking a couple of thousand of each one. So it used to be refugees 1,700. Then it was refugees 1,700 and their families. Now it's not going to be refugees. Now it's going to be divided into their countries, isn't it? One country, one country. So it should be a limit. In Thailand, they take 100 per country per year for citizens. So 100 per country. The islands are already at 3,000. There's already 3,000 coming in there. It's quite a lot already, isn't it?
Yeah, he's right.
So anyway, we better sign off now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to turn the video on.
I'll try and get